The president is a fighter. It is what the Republican base has wanted for decades. Someone to take on the shenanigans of the left. To have been in his position where he ran a company, he had a media company that put on a very successful show, you may have heard of it, The Apprentice, that he does it
amazing
under all of that, and he owns casino companies. With all the research he gets from there about what motivates people, what people are interested in, what people will pay attention to, the president knows what he's doing when he tweets these things out. But let me add one last thing.
Jessica's chomping at
Let me add one last thing.
I was so moderate for you in the last block. All out the door
over now,
David.
For all of this outrage by the media, and for Ana Navarro to get on there and say what she says, is a complete misunderstanding and an idiocy that the media and the president have not gotten along since day one. Thomas Jefferson owned newspapers to attack his political opponents. Somehow this is all new, that the media and the president have never gotten along, is a complete misunderstanding or lack of knowledge of the history of this country.
It was like this during the 1930s.
All right.
It was just the flip side.
Jessica, go for it. Guys, this is the President of the United States of America. I mean, I remember the good old days when President Obama used to be criticized because he wore a tan suit when people thought he should be in Navy, or when he used a selfie. Right? How big did his butt look? Or that he used a selfie stick.
Really, Jessica? There was outrage over these things? Come on.
No, the selfie stick for the BuzzFeed interview, that he was embarrassing the country because he was using a selfie stick for this joke interview in the White House. Now, Ana Navarro has never liked President Trump. That's been perfectly clear. Maybe that sounds extreme, but the idea that on this 4th of July weekend, the President of the United States of America is spending his time retweeting something like that, using his speech to veterans to criticize the media, which I will say, the media has been responsible for exposing many scandals that are going on actually at the VA. We need a free press to be going in there and unearthing these kinds of details.
It was a local news reporter who uncovered the Loretta Lynch tarmac meeting with Bill Clinton.
But it's still part of the press.
All right, let Dave respond here.
Towards them.
What reporter hasn't gotten to cover the story they want to? What reporter's freedom of speech has been taken away? Not one by these tweets.
You're not embarrassed by this? I mean, quite honestly, I respect you a lot, and I respect a lot of Republicans, and I think they're in a very difficult position because this is not the president in attitude or policy preference that they wanted.
Jessica, to be honest with you, you know what? So I think you said you thought it was funny. I was on the air when this got tweeted out yesterday morning, and I know that for a lot of us sitting on set, our initial reaction wasn't necessarily that it was funny. I think you get to that a little bit later as you watch it again. But it was, wow, he's going for it. He clearly didn't think that the Mika tweet was overboard. It was what it told me.
No, it was
and he was going to double down and he was going to go for it. We heard he was walking around the White House taking the temperature. What do you guys think?
Yelling at the TVs.
And then he went and did this. Well, so clearly it's part of his strategy, and he sees this as his strategy working. Because he didn't back off.
I do agree with Jillian in the sense that I don't understand why he cares what this group of peacock preening, humorless, self-involved, insecure, overeducated liberals, why they care what they think about.
And I think there is the danger here is that it sucks all the air out of the White House. And there are people there, like Tom Bossert, the Homeland Security advisor, who is forced to go on a Sunday show and respond to whether or not this incites violence. There are such a barrage of issues on the national security side here that need to be dealt with. And when you suck the air out of the administration and force all the top-level folks to go on the defense about this,
but his supporters are going to say you're not acknowledging what he is getting done. What about the two major pieces of legislation just passed on immigration?
You are spot on.
But that is a separate issue. That is completely separate. That is an immigration. What he is accomplishing is a separate issue from what this is preventing getting done.
In 50 years, people aren't going to be judging Donald Trump off what his tweet said. Were Americans more secure? Were they more economically advantaged? That's what historians are going to look back on this time and decide. And under that record, getting rid of many of the executive orders of President Obama is a good thing. You look at some of the legislation that Congress is working on, whether it be tax reform or health care reform, which maybe today hasn't passed, but one day will get passed.
But we all know that executive orders don't in and of themselves accomplish anything. Well, they require implementation across the federal government. We can count those as policy accomplishments once they're actually
I
implemented,
suspect
and nothing has happened on that front
These wily lawmakers who are members of the swamp are going to use Trump's tweeting and the way that he talks about the media as cover for not getting anything done. So they can just wash their hands of the American people and the growth agenda and say, it's his fault, when indeed it's not. It will lie on their shoulders.
But they're also responding to Americans. I mean, 71% of Americans in the new Fox News poll say that the tweets are hurting Trump's agenda. And a lot of his supporters are in that group. And what I would add is, in all of this kind of war on cable news that he's taking on, Americans have a choice, right? You can watch Morning Joe or not. You can watch Fox and Friends or not. You can be watching Chris Cuomo. But you can't turn off the president. Well, no one would turn that off. But you can't turn off the President of the United States of America. And you shouldn't have to think that. You shouldn't have to be sitting around your kitchen table with your children and saying, I don't want them to see this tweet from him. I don't want them to see his press conference. And that's why it's beneath the dignity of the office.